All right, y'all. What's up? This is Kenny, Blue Collar Shaved Ice.
Tracy, Transform with Tracy.
And this is Convos Over Waffles.
So,
what we got going on today?
Well, before we talk about that, let's talk about what we got going on today.
For sure.
So we got a couple of different things we're eating. So, Kenny, you have
a waffle sundae with a scoop of chocolate ice cream, whipped cream, and caramel. It's normally a little more stacked up. As always, we was running behind after we cooked the stuff, so the whipped cream has melted down.
And I have the chicken in the waffles, but I have some dessert. I have the watermelon polar ice with tahini and chamoy. And let me tell you, it's so good. Okay.
There it is.
Okay, so that's what we eating today. So we got a little bit of savory, we got a little bit of sweet, dessert.
Yeah, all the stuff.
All that at Blue Collar.
There it is.
All right.
So we got a big topic. A lot of y'all probably have heard of this topic before. So today we're going to be talking about manifesting and our experiences with that and what we think about the whole thing.
Right. So when a lot of times I want to put this disclaimer out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times people say, oh, manifesting, oh, that's evil, or whatever the case is. But when you think about manifesting, all manifesting is asking for what you want. So if you look at it in that sense, even when you pray and you're praying for something, that's a form of manifesting. Mm-hmm. So manifesting is universal to regardless of what you believe or not. Whether you believe it or not, you're doing it all the time.
Yeah, for sure. And leading into that, so doing it all the time.
Yes.
So that is a very big portion of manifesting.
Yes.
So it just happened to line up this way. You know what I mean? So doing it all the time. Let's break that down. So we've talked about in our previous episodes being conscious of what you are thinking about. Mm-hmm. So if you're thinking about negative stuff all the time, then your vision is going to be presenting that to you because it deems it as important. It's going to be manifesting your environment based on what you're thinking.
Right. So it's not only what you think, mm-hmm. but it's also what you say.
Yeah.
You have to be very aware of what you're saying because
the words have power.
Exactly. Words have a lot of power. And if you're one of those people that's like, oh, I'm so tired or I'm sick of being sick. Mm-hmm. Guess what? You're focusing on the fact of the sickness.
Yeah.
Now, not only are you thinking about it, you're giving it words.
Exactly.
You're giving it words. So that makes that manifestation even more powerful. Because you've given it words, now you have a feeling behind it. So you have the thought, you have the words, you have the feeling. That's what it takes to make something a strong manifestation.
Yeah.
You're sitting there, you're talking about you're sick. You don't want to be sick, but you're feeling sick. So you have all that whole mix. So guess what's going to happen?
Yeah, you're sick.
You're sick.
Just out here being sick.
Just out here being
crazy.
Sick.
So, and on top of that, so as you're doing that, kind of think back to where you are feeling sick. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So you're saying in your mind, I'm not feeling good, I'm mm-hmm. I'm sick, or whatever. Your energy is low because you're now acting sick. So how you said, you now have the feeling of it, you said it, and you have the actions that are now giving you the trifecta of manifesting whatever you're going to manifest.
You done made the whole little soup, salad, whatever you're going to call it.
Crazy.
So we have to be very aware of what we say, mm-hmm. what we think, and what we put out in the universe. And also, like you said, the action that we put behind it.
Exactly.
So I'm not saying that, if you're sick, jump up out the bed and act like you're not sick, but it might help.
And on that, as we talked about in other episodes as well, kind of setting up your environment. So if you are feeling sick, again, this is not medical advice and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're super sick, of course, go to the hospital and get some medicine.
Let's use common sense.
Mm-hmm. But there are things that you could do to make yourself feel better. So that's going to be, okay, I've been laying in this bed for days. It's all dark and dreary in here. So let me open up some windows, get some sunlight, go sit outside at a park.
Get some fresh air.
Exactly.
You know, also part of manifestation is we need to think about our environment.
Exactly.
You know, we as just a community or whatever, we've lost sight of nature. Going out and being in nature and actually being in it versus walking through it. And when I mean walking through it is like, okay, I'm walking to get in my car to go somewhere. Then I get out of my car to walk into a building.
Exactly.
But how often do you just stop and are just like, let me enjoy what's around me. Let me get this vitamin D. Let me get this fresh air and look at the beauty of what's going on, because again, that's going to set your mindset, and you got to have a right mindset to be able to manifest good things.
Exactly. So on that, so we talked about the power of words.
Yes.
So this is not only you vocally speaking the words, but also what you're writing down.
Oh, yes.
So when you're writing down anything, any of the words that you're writing down or speaking all have vibrational energy. So we're aligning frequencies that's going to get us on the right frequency based on the words that we're saying. So this brings up manifesting because you're hydrated. So my mom's grabbing this bottle of water right now.
Cheers.
You know what I mean? So the label is the label. But imagine that she took intention and wrote positive words onto that bottle.
Oh, right.
So now if you're familiar with science and seeing how, or that experiment rather, where they did the water experiment.
Oh, yeah.
So they put negative words and said negative words to one cup of water, positive words attached and said positive words to another cup of water, and then they froze this water. In that freezing method, the water that had the positivity, positive words taped to the bottle, positive words being said to the glass of water.
Right.
You now have a nice deep crystal formulation. You know
Think
what I mean?
of that pretty snowflake.
Exactly. So then, conversely, the negative water that had the negative words and negative frequencies or verbal words spoken to it had irregular crystal formations, and that water oftentimes tend to be murky.
I was going to say, and it gets dark.
Yes.
If you haven't ever looked at that experiment, you should. You can Google it.
Yeah.
But look at that experiment, because that is really something.
Yeah.
And it's not just like with water. They even say that with the plants, and a lot of kids will do this as like science experiments, is you have one plant, you know, they're both in the same environment, but one plant you're speaking life into that plant, and the other one you're speaking down into it. So of course the one that you're speaking life into thrives versus the one that you're speaking negativity to. So that goes back to another conversation that we had during one of our previous content, where how we speak to our children. You know, I used to teach parenting classes, and I tell people you have to be very mindful of what you speak to your kids, because what you speak to your kids often becomes their reality, and then they take that on. And guess what happens to them? They start manifesting that negativity that you have spoken to them. And then you're wondering, oh, well, why do they act out? Why are they doing this? Because you did that.
You said in the background, that's an old bad kid. And they heard you.
Exactly. So, you know, you have to, so writing and speaking, like I said, we're always in a constant state of manifesting. So the thing is it you can consciously manifest, but then you have the unconscious manifesting. So the unconscious manifesting is those things that we're talking about, you know, that we're thinking about, that we're writing down, that we're really not thinking matter. You know, it's like, I'm writing this for me, or I'm saying this to me. It doesn't matter because nobody's hearing it. But divine, God, the universe, they're hearing it.
Yeah.
And they're not going to say, because let me back up a little bit. So it's not so much we're looking at what the universe knows is good for us versus our free will.
Yeah.
So our free will is always going to go over what the universe knows is good.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have our free will, that's what is going to be given to us because that's what we're asking for.
Yeah.
Versus even though God may know, well, that's probably not the best thing for you, but you do it anyway because of your free will. That's you manifesting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and once you get into that divine, you'll start seeing where your life starts turning around because now you're following the path. Again, going back to a previous podcast, your purpose. You're following a path that was really laid out to you, but it's up to you to get to that path. And when you're manifesting, they're not going to say, oh, well, that's not the path that I want you to take. That's the path that you're wanting to take.
Yeah.
So.
And there is, and I would say further into that, there, from a top-down approach in viewing that, I don't think that there is outside of some things. So I don't think there's, it's negative. They're viewing you as negative because you decided to eat a waffle sundae.
Yeah, that's not, yeah.
You know what I mean? So some people may view that as negatively. You know what I mean? So
right.
Those type of things, it's not a barometer. And that's why when you're thinking negative stuff comes to you.
Right.
Because there's not a top-down look and saying like, oh, that's a negative versus positive.
Right.
It is just all frequencies and energy. So if this is the energy that you're pursuing, then that's the energy that you want. And that's not this is good for you or this is bad for you. So it's bad for you, so I'm going to prevent you from experiencing
exactly
that. So it's based on what you want. So just switching up a little bit, do you have any examples of small or big things that you have manifested?
Well, I will say this was pretty...
Well, real quick. So...
Oops.
So
that's when your hair gets in the way.
So so switching gears a little bit on this. So would you say that you have examples of small or big things that you manifested?
I would say something big. For me anyway, that was big. And this is it's also an example of that manifesting doesn't happen right away. Mm-hmm. It may take a while for things to happen. So in my job, I work for the federal government. Yes, pray for me, y'all. I work for the federal government now. Probably at one point when I got my house, I put a Post-it note on my mirror. And on that Post-it note, it said GS 11 on there. That Post-it note, and it was on my mirror because it was something that I was going to see every morning. So I'd wake up every morning, I'd see that. In my mind, I'm saying, okay, GS 11, what does that mean? That's what I'm striving to get to. This Post-it note had been on my mirror for a number of years. Mm-hmm. Then one day, an opportunity came. I happened to be looking on the site that has all the listings for government jobs, and I never looked at White Sands. I never would look at that because I'm not going to be driving out there. But that day, I happened to go on there, and I looked at it, and I was like, you know what? That's my job. It just came to me that was my job. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, I want to be, I'm going to apply for it. And I'm looking, I go talk to my director, and I let her know. I said, I saw this, and I want to apply for it. Mm-hmm. So I just want you, giving you a heads up. And she, in return, tells me, she's like, that director called me and asked me if I knew anybody. And I was like, it just sent chills down me. And she's like, so, I'll let her know if, that's what you want. And I'm like, yeah, go for it. Fast forward, I go through the whole process. So if anybody's thinking, somebody called in a favor, no, I got interviewed just like everybody else got interviewed. And I got the job. After years of being a contractor, I was a contractor for 19 years, watching other people be able to get into the GS system, but because I didn't have any type of preference, I couldn't get in it.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, at White Sands, you don't need to have a preference because it's a remote place. So they're like, we open it up to the public.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of people that are applying for it. So I got into the system. That is how manifestation works.
Mm-hmm.
And every day after that, after I got every day after I applied for the position, there was a song that I would play every single day.
Yeah.
That was positive, that was helping me get there. And when I got the call for the job, I went out in my car, and this was Kenny's advice. I went out in my car and I just screamed as loud just to let all that energy out. And I played that song all the way. Yeah. So that's something big. Mm-hmm. That's how manifestation works. You have to set your intention and you have to put things in action.
Yep, and attach the feeling.
To it. Because you have to, in that, I felt myself in that job.
Yep.
I felt myself doing what it was I was going to be doing. So manifestation also has a lot to do with visualization as well.
Exactly.
So for you, what about you? Is there a small or a big manifestation that you can think of?
Yeah, so just keeping it on, I guess, on topic, on track. So I manifested blue collar shaved ice.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit about my background. I went to New Mexico State, studied to become a graphic designer, graduated in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
So one of those years, I'll say 2000, maybe 10 or even 9 even, one of my art classes, we were required to sketch in our sketchbooks.
Mm-hmm.
So our homework was like, hey, you need to produce 20 sketches or ideas or whatnot. So one of the sketches that I drew out and literally set my intentions to have a food business.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, unknowingly, I didn't know about any of this stuff. I just drew out the logo, said I want to have a food truck. So combining my years of DJing,
mm-hmm.
I not only want to have a food truck, but I want the food truck to be an entertainment hub.
Yeah.
So all of these notes that I had in my sketchbook were draw out the logo, give the name, blue collar shaved ice. I want a food truck on the opposite side of the serving window. I want to have 2 TVs, big screen TVs, so that people could play video games, all that type of stuff. I want speakers on the other side of the truck so I could potentially DJ from the truck and have music going. I want it to be blue. I want it to be white. I like those colors. My favorite color has always been blue. So different layers to why it's called blue collar shaved ice. But wrote all that stuff down, graduated. Some years go forward. Now my youngest brother, Trey, he's entering into college.
Yes.
In a similar degree field. And he's like, I need some art supplies because he's going to have to take some of these same art classes. So I go through my old stuff, find these old sketch pads that still had pages left, pencils, all of that type of stuff. Here you go. So as I'm looking through, just reminiscing, like, shoot, let me see what my skills are like. Can I actually draw or not? I find that page that had the logo drawn out in those notes about this business. So for me, me writing it down and making it plain, as you will,
mm-hmm.
implanted that into my subconscious that I am going to have a food truck.
Right.
Whenever I drew the logo out and gave my idea a name, it made it a reality in my mind.
Right.
So now it's just a matter of time before my actual reality matches the subconscious thoughts that I have.
Right.
So then fast forward a little bit more and I actually build the truck, and there it is. Found the page, and what I wrote down is how the truck came out to be.
Right, because you had the truck, it had the video screens on there.
Yep.
You even did caterings where you were DJing and serving the food, serving the shaved ice, and the kids were playing the video games.
Yeah.
So everything that you had put into place, that you had written down, came to fruition.
Exactly.
You know, again, it's not like it's overnight. You have to put in the work.
Yeah, it took years. It took years.
So in your situation, it took years. And then before that, you knew that you were going to do the food truck, but you have to have the money to do the food truck.
Yep.
So you came up with plans on how to raise money to get that food truck.
Yep.
So
I was selling snow cones as an adult. We talked about this before, but I was selling shaved ice as an adult at some of these garage sales and stuff.
Yeah.
Before I had the truck, or right before I was about to open, technically.
Right, and then you had the clothing line.
Yep, I had in my own zone.
Yeah, that kind of funded.
Yeah.
You getting the truck and being able to put the truck together.
Yep. And then, so the thing that kind of took me over the top with getting the funds, I had a motorcycle ready to get out of that lifestyle, so sold my motorcycle, used that money.
Made his pawpaw so happy.
Used that money to go drive up to Albuquerque with my dad and drive back in this old news truck with no AC in the middle of summertime. So it was very hot, 4-hour drive.
Yeah, but you got to make it happen. You have to put the action in. So, you know, even along my story, those 11 years, I mean, those 19 years really, that took me to get to be in that position, I had to take other classes. I had to build my skills.
Exactly.
To be able to do that. Whereas if I would have said, you know, put that Post-it note on the mirror and said, oh, I just want to be a GS11 at some point, and then didn't put any work behind it, didn't try and take the extra classes that I needed to take, didn't try and better myself. Because, you know, one of the things about where I work, part of it, you had to have a social services degree. And thank goodness for COVID or whatever, you know, there was some good stuff that came out of COVID. I went back to school because even though I had my bachelor's degree, it wasn't that degree would not have gotten me that job. I had to have a job in social services. So I went back and got my master's degree, and it is in a social services discipline. So I was putting in work because that had already been planted in my head subconsciously. So I was doing the work without even realizing that that's what I was working towards.
Exactly. So that's powerful stuff. So I guess now, like, quick tips to increase your manifestation speed or process.
So one of the things, number one, is our thought process and our words. So a lot of times people say, well, I'm manifesting, and I'll say, I want to be healthy. That word want, that's what it's going to focus on. So you're going to continue to want to be healthy instead of saying, I am healthy. Whenever you say, I want, or
future tense stuff.
Yeah. You want to put it as I am. You want to, like you said, already future tense. Those two words, I am, are very powerful.
Exactly.
And especially when you are trying to get something to come to your life. So it's kind of like the law of attraction. What you put out is what you get back. So when you're saying, I want something, you're going to continue to want it.
Yep. Into next year. Oh, I want to do this next year. I want to do this next week. That is a rolling week. Because it's not distinguishing, oh, you actually mean next week? Because, oh, I thought you always just wanted it to be next week.
Exactly. Because guess what? Next week, if you really think about it, next week and tomorrow never come.
Exactly.
We're always in the now.
Perfect.
So we have to remember we're in the now, and we have to speak like we're in the now. So number one, change the way you say things. Number two is visualize yourself doing it.
Exactly.
So actually look at yourself. You know, I looked at myself driving that distance to go to work. Look at myself sitting in the office, just like how you would probably look at yourself being behind that food truck, getting the machines, looking and visualizing how this ice is supposed to look. You know, you have to visualize it. So you got to put your words, visualize, and then do actions to make those things happen in the here.
Exactly. So my quick tips on this, as my mom mentioned, gave her the advice, like before she went and did that interview, go out to the car and yell in excitement.
Yes.
So if y'all haven't been around me or heard me, I'll randomly, I won't do it here, I'll probably blow this microphone out. So what I'm doing when I do that, or if I'm on Instagram live or stories and I'm doing that, I'm raising my energy level. Because in the background, I'm actually manifesting and putting stuff into where it should be. Right. So the quickest way for me, and that I found that to do that, is to go out there and yet let that yell of excitement. Think about it. How much as adults do you actually yell for excitement? Like literally very loud.
Yeah, that's why I had to get in the car.
Yes. And just let out a wave of positive energy. When you do that, it's going to give you an energy boost.
It does.
It's just going to give you an energy boost because there's so much energy coming out. So then right after that, when you're in that high state of energy, that's when you start repeating your I ams and visualizing, because now you're attaching those I ams and visualizations to that positive feeling that you have. So now the universe, God, the divine, as we always say, all of those above, are gonna be like, oh wow, that's a lot of energy that they're putting forth to this mindset. Let me hurry up and get them to that point in real life, because your mind is already thinking that it's real anyway.
Right.
So as you're walking around, it just needs to match now.
That part. It's like get it to line up. But I like what you said. You have to make sure that your energy is in line with what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because just to go back to the whole sick thing, if you're saying, if you're just walking around saying, I am not sick, but then you still feel, you're still subconsciously feeling sick, those two things don't match up.
Exactly. And that's why, so if we're talking about manifesting like money and being out of debt and stuff like that. So if you say, oh, I want to be out of debt.
Right.
Again, focusing on all the words that are at play in that sentence, whether it's written down or verbalized. Debt is not a positive thing.
No.
So maybe an alternative saying is, I am infinitely abundant.
Yes.
Because now there is no confusion about what you actually want. And beyond that, so this, I don't necessarily know if this was a quick tip, because this takes a lot of mental power and fortitude, if you will, resiliency. But you have to understand your underlying beliefs about any topic.
Go back and listen to the other podcast. Okay.
You got to understand your underlying beliefs. So if you grew up and you're saying money is the root of all evil, then the next day you're talking about you want to be a millionaire, you are creating an internal conflict that now the universe does not know what you want.
Right.
Because it's not clear. Because at one point you're saying money is the root of all evil. So if you become a millionaire, are you now evil?
Yeah.
So now what that means is you have to go back in and understand those limiting beliefs and correct that with a different affirmation before you move on to the next step of affirming that you want to be a millionaire.
Right. Exactly. Because as long as you think your subconscious, that limiting belief, because it's limiting you, is that money is evil. Why am I going to do something to make myself evil?
Exactly.
Why am I going to pursue this if it's going to make me evil? When I believe that evil is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
It becomes a conflicting thing. But one of the things I want to build off of what you said real quick, though, is how those limiting beliefs and how we can manifest in it. When you said it, just reminded me of something that I heard. We have to look at how we manifest and how we get rid of those limiting beliefs and how we change our mindset, because it was explained that it's like a tree. And if you think about the roots of the tree, that's what's harboring us. Those are our beliefs. And then as you go up, you have the branches, and then you have the leaves, and then, the canopy of leaves, that's the high point, okay? We always want to go straight from here all the way up to the high point.
Yep.
And we're not building on those roots. And so if our roots are weak, then when we get up here, we don't have the beliefs to sustain those. So that tree is going to end up falling over.
Yeah.
So you have to work on yourself first. You have to work on what is my limiting beliefs? What is holding me back? If I've been trying to bring certain things into my life, but they're not coming, dig a little deeper and find out why isn't it coming? What's holding me back?
Because if you do that digging, you'll probably find that there is a conflicting thought or belief, you know? So
exactly. So I didn't explain that tree thing as well as the person I heard say it, but
I thought it was good.
Y'all get the gist.
Yeah, for sure. And hopefully, you know, we're not manifesting professionals, but these are just things that we have learned along our path and journey. So hopefully y'all hearing this conversation, even if it only helps one person, where it's like you picked up on one sentence that we said and it put a light bulb off, and then you go manifest or bring something to your reality that you've been wanting. Like, oh, that was the missing ingredient. I didn't know I need to go outside and yell.
So exactly. And you know, again, and manifesting isn't about big things. It doesn't always, it can be just little things. And one of the things, you know, when you were just saying that, I thought about Cameron, you know, so Kenny, myself, and Trey, the youngest, we've always kind of been on this whole manifestation thing. Cameron was slow to get on board.
Like, what? Are y'all even manifesting?
Yeah, Cameron was late to the party. But what changed Cameron's mind, he decided he was going to manifest him some earbuds.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that where he was working, somebody had lost some, and they didn't ever come back and claim them.
Yeah.
They had been in the lost and found for months.
Yeah.
And so he came home. He's like,
He literally said, do y'all even manifest?
Do y'all even manifest? Because look what I did. And we're all just looking at him like,
what?
You're late.
Yeah, all the way.
So it could be something as small as wanting some earpods.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But yeah, so, you know, but just being...
So the biggest things, just being mindful of what you say, whether it's verbally or written, setting the intention to do it, taking action, or before taking action, aligning your feelings to the action.
Right.
Those are the big takeaways that we hope that you take away from this. But like that, this is Convos Over Waffles, and I'm Kenny once again.
And I'm Tracy, Transform with Tracy. I can help you manifest or learn how. Hey.
We out here. So thanks for tuning in, y'all. We'll catch y'all on the runny tide.
For those who know, who the
Yeah.